So we're here today to talk about how health and well-being affects Hinckley and Bosworth and what we do to promote that, to look after it. I think the best place to start probably would be to introduce ourselves. So I'm Cllr Mark Bools. My portfolio includes health, and it's something I'm really passionate about. Obviously, I train as a nurse. My mum's a nurse, so it's really within my blood is this looking after people. And I know you feel the same, so I'll let you introduce yourself so you can bring to life that aspect of you as well.
Yeah, I'm Helen Smith. I work for the Borough Council as a physical activity development officer. I am a great passionate person around physical activity and health and well-being.
My name's Alan Plumpton. I'm really a patient, and that's is my qualification in terms of that. But I also run a telephone befriending service through our surgery, and I also have links with the PPG patient participation groups, which are part of GP practices.
And I think that's the beautiful thing, is that across the borough we have lots of people from different backgrounds. They come together.
Yes.
It's that integrated approach that I think is really important. I didn't realise how integrated it was actually until I took over this portfolio. And it's only when you dig deeper and you attend meetings and you listen to people, how many different people join together and combine to affect people's well-being.
Yeah, most definitely, Mark. I think we have a great network out there, from spanning to our patient groups in our surgeries. We have our local area coordinators, we have our social prescribers that, we are constantly linking into for sort of health and well-being for our residents.
Because that integration is such an important thing as a patient. Because one of the things I find the problem sometimes is that you go and you get some support from a social prescriber in a surgery, but then you get some support from social services, but one doesn't know what the other one has been doing. And communication is such an important element of that integration process. And hopefully with the development of the local area coordinators and the social prescribers, it means that we can begin to link not NHS care and social care, but care with a capital C.
Yeah, and I think this is where the Borough Council plays a pivotal role. I was at a meeting last week and someone said district and borough councils play a vital role because they know their people best.
Yes.
They're at that ground level, and I think joining all those services together, being that linchpin, acting as that sounding board, because we have that housing interface you talked about, we have that care element, we have the leisure centre on our doorstep, and I think it's these interventions that do join it all together. I think there's one challenge I noticed very early on, is that because we're such a rural borough, it's quite difficult to get to everyone, and I know that's something that I've noticed and heard. And also because we deal with two hospitals as well, we've got obviously the Leicester Hospital Trust, we've got George Eliot, so there are natural geographic challenges that we've faced. But I think the one thing that keeps it all together is that the combination of all different groups of people, but also that central element I think the council bring to that.
Because the needs of the rural community are very different from the needs of the urban community, and Leicestershire has, both, and it is very difficult sometimes to address that.
Yeah, it takes good coordination.
Yes, working in sort of that physical activity element, we do try to offer those intervention sessions around physical activity, of areas like Stoke Golding, Rocheston, Barlston, and it is difficult at times. It's bus routes, it's so much more than just people getting to a venue, particularly when we look at our older population. And the interventions that we put through, like our Steady Steps programme, our chatter chairs, our Steady Steps Plus, these are aimed at our elderly population that don't always have transport to get them to places where we put sessions on. And I think that's sometimes, quite challenging for us. But, certainly we do try and utilise the whole of the borough to put on those interventions.
And I think that's been the success I've seen, is going to all the villages you've mentioned and beyond, all the way up to like Ratby, which is on the edge of Leicester. And then you've got on the other side, you've got things like Twycross, which actually are northwest Leicestershire, really in that geographical space. I think this is where we can actually talk about like how we integrate, because that's, I think, the next step. I know you've got a big passion when it comes to the PPG and the GP surgeries, and they're obviously at the centre of their villages and communities.
And one of the big issues we've got at the moment is educating the public about how GP surgeries have changed. Gone are the days where you made your appointment and your expectation was, I'm going to see the GP, the doctor. There are so many other health professionals now linked to each surgery. So we've got physiotherapists, we've got clinical pharmacists, dietitians, paramedics, health and wellbeing coaches, all linked into your individual surgery. The surgeries now begin to work as a team, these primary care networks, which are groups of surgeries that are pooling their resources and expertise. But it means that we can expect to get the best treatment. Just because you don't see the doctor doesn't mean to say you're getting second-class treatment. You're getting better treatment in that respect. And it's very important that things like social prescribers and the local area coordinators, social prescribers paid for by the NHS, local area coordinators paid by the local authority, those two groups working together and advising patients as to the best way forward, signposting people to activities, to support in the care is really a positive move forward. And in Leicestershire and especially in Hinckley and Bosworth, I feel the way those two groups are beginning to work together is really becoming very positive.
Yeah, and I can reiterate that because over the last couple of months, we've been going into surgeries, working with surgeries, with the practice managers, offering health walks for patients. We've been working with local area coordinators, providing information for patients when they come into the surgery, and they are really well, they sit really well in the surgery because you've got patients coming in.
That's right,
and it's a great opportunity to talk about what we offer as a local authority, and like you say, it's not always sometimes you want to go and see a GP.
No.
It's so much more to talk about diabetes. It's to talk about, type 2 diabetes, which is high. We can offer support around those services.
The patient participation groups are such a vital element of getting patient voices out there, and people, anybody can join a PPG, a patient participation group, at their surgery. There is a requirement that surgery should have those, and so go in and ask who is your chairperson and make contact. And it's not a moaning shop. It's a way of exchanging ideas. And surgeries, any business wants to know what its consumers are experiencing, and that's a way in which the PPGs do provide that. A patient participation group is vital to sort of make sure the surgeries are aware what the experience of a patient is.
I've attended some of those meetings. Like I say, they're definitely not a moany shop. They're really positive, actually, when you talk about those experiences, and it builds into that next experience for the next person because they make the difference. I know an unsung hero that we often talk about is the volunteer sector, because they do a lot of the work. And again, until you start talking to people, and the volunteers do a lot of work. I don't know if you've got any.
Yeah, we offer a walks program in the borough, and that is solely run by our volunteers, supported by myself through the work that I do. But they go out once a week. They take a group of people for an hour and a half's walk. We have round about 30 walk leaders. We've got walks from Hinckley Bosworth. We have walks from Burbage Common. We have 3 walks actually from Burbage Common, which is fantastic. But without those volunteers, those walks programs wouldn't exist.
And I think the sad fact is budgets are getting smaller. The NHS is more of a burden, and I think all of this is in service of taking that pressure off the NHS. It's reducing that burden on budget when it comes to resource.
It's prevention, looking at the prevention of people having to go and use the NHS. So all that healthy activity is what it's about.
And there are a huge amount of people living with long-term health conditions, and we need to put preventative measures in to stop those long-term health conditions. We're talking of people in their 20s who are fit and healthy at the moment, but may be very different when they're in the 60s. And we have to make sure we look after those people so that it does take the pressure off.
We run a telephone befriending service based at our surgery, Barwell and Holycroft Surgery, and that the setting up of that was quite an issue, because I certainly didn't have any ideas how to do that. But the organisations like the Rural Community Council here in Hinckley, and Voluntary Action Leicestershire, and including the Borough Council, all provided me with help and support in knowing what to do, how to do it, and introduced me and signposted me to other groups who were doing similar things. So we now have an organisation that's been running now for the past 7 years, where we now have 30 volunteers who are regularly telephoning an identifiable person who has been picked up by a health professional as who would benefit from a telephone call, and that happens now on a regular basis. We're always looking, just like you, for new volunteers, but the point is that the volunteer sector there is part and parcel of doing that, and if they weren't there, then that just wouldn't happen. And whether it's the physical health of a person or the mental health of a person, and following COVID, we are still suffering from the reflections of COVID when it comes to loneliness and vulnerability. And the people we are working with still are carrying the scars of that isolation that was happening then. But the Borough Council, in its wisdom, came up with a way in which we could get hold of small pots of money, which would enable us who are not registered charities to be able to just get a few pounds to enable us to run an activity, whether it is to support a social activity that just makes life that bit better for those individuals. That decision was memorable as far as we were concerned, and it now means that we can tap into that small pot of money and start off trying new ideas and carrying forward the work that we're trying to do.
I mean, we talked earlier about chatter chairs, you know,
absolutely,
and how chatter chairs has benefited your residents, you know, where you're situated. You know, sort of starting off with how many, Alan?
We started off with about 5 or 6. Now got 25 plus. We have a job to get them in the room.
It's a lot of chairs. And I think it's the aim, definitely, of the administration. I'm at the council. I know the offices as well. Is to have that effect on people, and it comes back to those priorities. You know, the 5 key pillars in a community health and wellbeing plan, and it is that mental health wellbeing. It's housing, which is, you know, a hot topic, but so important to get that right. You know, there's a huge burden because of the cost of living. We're having to deal with that. You mentioned COVID, and when you come out of that, the SEND. I'm a governor in a school, and you know, the need of children with special educational needs is growing, and it's a real issue in the community. And you're gonna have to help me with the last one. Put you on the spot.
You have put me on the spot. Have you? I've done my homework. We need a bit of help here.
Carers, there you go.
Carers.
But carers are so important, and I think it's the work of carers, and obviously about the work that carers do, the money they save, the impact they make, and I think it's those 5 things combined. When it comes to all of that, we go back to holistic again and that integrated approach. If you get all of those elements right, and I know as a council we're really committed to that through link between each one of those 5 pillars.
And I think with all of the interventions that we put on for our residents, it just doesn't stop at health and wellbeing. We talk about housing, we talk about the environment that we live in, you know, and, you know, we need to ensure through our planning, through our housing, that we can offer that sort of environment that is good for us.
But, you know, we've had some big investment within Hinckley and Bosworth when it comes to our hospital setting. I know you've been working on this 10 years, you said?
Yeah.
10 years, you don't look old enough.
Few grey hairs. But I mean, the original concept was to just have an endoscopy suite and improve some elements of that. And we did a public engagement programme all around the Hinckley and Bosworth area for some time, finding out what patients needed, not necessarily what they wanted, but what they needed, to make sure that we could provide that locally. And I think the situation at the moment is we've got the Community Diagnostic Centre, which is nearing completion, which is going to provide us with MRI scanners, CT scanner, endoscopy suites and everything within the Hinckley area, which means that people are not going to need to go to Leicester. Free parking here. easier to get to, and it means doctors can actually send people for a diagnosis directly from their surgeries to go and have that MRI scan or whatever to make that test. Now, in addition, hopefully we've got another £10 million coming in to give us a day case unit as well in that same area. So the beginning of 2025, we should hopefully have some of the best diagnostic systems available.
And I know it's one of those feelings that it's about time, and I think that's something we've heard. That Hinckley and Bosworth does feel like it has missed out on some of that before from the NHS and government, and I think it's about time that has happened. And I think it's about £25 million just the first one. It's a huge investment, and I think, yes, we did have some of those services before, but the experience now is going to be far greater for patients, and that's what it's about. What I'd love to ask, because this was one thing my wife asked me last night. She said, "What are you going to say?" I was, "I'm not sure." But if you could say one thing you think this all makes a difference to people in the borough, because I think that's one thing I try and do every day. When, as a counsellor, you're like, what are you trying to do? Just make people's lives a bit better. And I don't know if you've got one thing you're proud of or one thing that you think it really makes a difference. All of these initiatives do.
Yeah, I think I could probably mention a lot, but I think probably for me over the last couple of months was working with surgery and meeting a resident that came along, hadn't been out of her home for 4 to 5 months. Just as we started to do the walk, she just had a little bit of a tear and a little bit of a moment. And, I reassured her that, are you okay? We're just going out for a short walk, and she said, I'm a little bit nervous. And I said, you'll be absolutely fine. I'll support you all the way. And she just didn't stop talking all the way around our walk. I mean, she loved it. And I think when all the work behind the scenes to get that walk, but when you see that person smile and didn't stop talking, I mean, I thought I could talk a lot, but that to me just sums up the importance of what we do as a borough council, and we need to continue to do that.
Yeah, and I'd pick a similar sort of example in terms of the chatter chairs and the work that's gone on there. We have a brilliant teacher, Neela, who comes and does our teaching us, the healthy way of keeping and safe way of keeping fit. But one thing that does stick in my mind, we have one gentleman who joined us, who one of our befrienders brought in to the activity, and he was very insular, didn't talk to anybody at all, came in, head bowed, sat down. In fact, the first couple of sessions didn't really take part, but nobody bothered him, that he was sort of at least seated there and listening to what was going on. And that must be over a year ago now. He is now, it's difficult to shut him up. He is talking with everybody. He's our biscuit monitor. He goes around where the coffee's on.
Responsibility, isn't it?
No more than 2.
That's one if it's a hobnob, very expensive.
But that, as you say, you see the change in people in what is quite a short period of time. That person would have stayed in their home, staring at the 4 walls and everything, and yet now they're integrating with society again, with people around them, and that is worth a million biscuits or whatever, because it's just changed that person's life. And okay, it's the rest of the people there, it hasn't changed their lives that dramatically, but there has been a change, and they've made new friends. They've made links with people that they would not have made otherwise. So that's the thing, the individual things.
I've seen that in action myself. I've been really lucky. I've attended, obviously, sessions run by the officers. One at Sporting Desford I'll never forget, and it was biscuits there. There was biscuits and juice, but there was party music, and they all got a certificate and a badge, and they became ambassadors. And it was the difference that being empowered to use your voice, being able to speak, being allowed that space. I'm really proud of the officers. I'm proud of the council prioritising this, because it's not universal. I think we all know that. If you cross a borough, if you cross a county line, sometimes they're different. We make a huge effort to do this. And I think when you hear those stories, I've seen it in action, Make a Difference awards are coming up soon. And they're the people, again, who are making this. I'm really proud. So thank you so much for making, because each of you make a huge difference in the communities. And thank you for doing that. I want to thank Helen and Alan, who have shared all of their fantastic experience with us, and also the real difference it makes to residents within Hinckley and Bosworth. I think the thing that we are most proud of, though, is every single interaction, every single event is in service of making people happier, healthier, keeping people in their homes longer. And you make the difference as well by attending these events and supporting them. So volunteer, and we look forward to seeing you at the next event, wherever it is within the borough.